Hello and welcome to this SwiftUI programming video. In a previous video, we created this tab view here using JSON placeholder API to download all of the posts and the albums for a user and the photos and the posts here and so on. We went through it really quickly as more of a prototype. Okay, and we wrote some generic code and so on. So if you want to watch that, it's like a 43-minute video. You feel free to watch it. However, we went through it really quickly, and in this video I want to go through the initial users page here, and I want to go through it and do it properly. Okay, so we're not going to do it fast, we're just going to do it properly, and just to go from there. And you can use this same template of how we're going to do the users to do the others as well. So with that said, let's just start creating the whole new project once again, and I'm going to go through and we're going to make the folders for it, the files for it. We're going to do everything correctly in the time that it should take, right? As if you were actually developing this to do it properly. With that said, okay, let's move that out of the way, and let's remove this one project, and let's do a project here and do iOS application, and we'll just name it JSON placeholder whoops slow time. Okay, and let's just start it how it was, and we'll just save it again. All right, there we go. And once this is up and running, and we'll do iPhone 15 once again. Good stuff. So the first thing that we want is a tab view. Okay, let's just quickly create this tab view to be happy with having a tab view here. And we had then users, and let's just create this text, users and photos and posts. Okay, and photos and posts. And now let's just go ahead and create the tab item here. Okay, and inside of this we're going to create a label, and inside of here we're going to say users, and the system image is then going to be a person, and we have the first one, and we'll create the second one now, and then the third one, and the next one was photos, which was album, I think it was, or photo, I think it was actually. We'll just do message. Okay, that'll be fine. Okay, so now we have these three tab views, nice and simple. Okay, but what we want to be able to do is this view here, this content view, can stay how it is, right? And this tab view can stay how it is. It's all perfectly fine. But this is the view. This is a feature now, what I'm going to place underneath this users, and this is going to be a feature now as well, and this is going to be a feature now as well. So we've got users, we've got photos, and we've got users, photos, and posts. There we go. All right, all displaying correctly, and when we tap between them we get the correct text. Okay, so let's come inside of our JSON place slow time, and let's create a new group, and I'm going to call this features, and inside of here I'm going to create here, and this is going to be called users. All right, and inside of the other ones I'm going to create photos, because there's probably going to be in the future you'd have other files with inside of it. And inside of the users feature I'm going to create then a SwiftUI file, and this is going to be users feature. Right, this is going to be the top level file that we're going to have. Okay, and inside of this body, let's just cut it out first of all, and we know that it's going to have sub children. Right, it's going to present files, other views. Okay, so let's just say users base, or we'll call it root view here. Okay, nice and simple, and we're going to copy this, and we're just going to make a second one, and we'll say photos feature, and come in there, photos feature, and photos once again. And let's just create the next one. I know we said we're only going to do the users, but we are only going to do the users. But I feel that, oh, whoops, posts. I want to at least show you the pattern that we're going to follow. All right, and let's come to here and just take the navigation stack, put it in there instead, and we can have posts here. Okay, happy days. So now let's come back to our content view, and we can see now that we get exactly the same thing, right? But this time we can have our users feature instead, and we can have our photos features instead, and we can have our posts feature instead. Okay, so we're seeing basically exactly the same thing now. However, from the top level, we now know that we can look within inside of the features. So we've got a feature, and we see a features folder, and inside of that we see then the name of the feature, posts, photos, and users as well. So we know that at any one point within inside of this tab view, we can go from there and see these one features. So everything and anything to do with users now will sit within inside of this users folder. Okay, so now we have the users list. So let's just create a new file now, and we're going to say users list view. Okay, and let's just rename this users. Let's say list of users, which we're going to create in a second, and we're going to come here and we'll say users list view. Okay, nice and simple, and come back to our content view, and we get list of users. So now we can look at these and we can see, okay, this is then the place where the list is going to happen. And so let's change this to is that Welsh or something, I don't know, and we'll change it to the first user and user 1, etc. All right, and we can come inside of our users feature, and now we can change the navigation tile, the title, to users. So users list isn't in charge of this. The users feature is in charge of giving the title here. All right, and so now let's come back to our content view, and we're still the same. We see our users. Okay, now when we come to the users list view, we will now have a users detail view. So we're just creating these from the beginning, and user detail view, and I much prefer doing it this way. And this, in the last video I said that we're going to use combine till its full effect. Now you could pass a user here to the detail, but I'm going to pass an ID, okay, because this is going to be overall way better because you want to be able to load stuff. And yes, passing the data model to the next view, yeah, I'm all right with that, but I much prefer, you never know, you may like deep link or universal link inside of the app, and it might go direct to it, and you want to let this user detail be responsible for loading its own data in its own time, and not have to have all of the other views loaded prior to itself. It's as lightweight as possible. All right, so we're going to say here that user, and it has ID here. Okay, nice and simple. So now let's come to our users list view, and now we know that we're going to display a navigation link, and we're going to be using the hashable value here, and we're going to then say the user. But first of all, we need to at least list through all of the users. Well, in this sense, we're going to come up to here, and we're going to extract it to a state variable. Now we're going to extract this even higher, but for the time being we're going to do it this way. Okay, and we don't have a user right now. We're going to create this user inside of this file, but we are going to extract it even further as well. And we're just going to make it conform to model, and that's going to need an ID. Okay, and the model is going to be a type alias, and we're going to say model, and this is going to be codable and hashable and identifiable. This is going to cover all of the relevant things that we need it to do for the destination, for codable first of all, and also for hashable. It's going to help us with everything. So now we have this, we can come to our list and we can say items, and this is then going to loop through each of them for our item. We can say the item there, and inside of here we can then say user and then item ID once again. All right, we don't have to do it this way, so let's just comment this out. We could turn around and say that this is going to be a list, or you could say that this is going to be a scroll bar, right, and this is then going to be a scroll view, sorry. It would then say for each, and inside of this for each we're going to have an item, and then here we're going to say navigation link, and value for item and then here we say text is then user, user and item ID. You'll notice this pretty much makes the same thing, and right now we don't have any users in there, so let's just make one, and there we can see the users there, but we don't get the niceness of the list. That's why it takes that little bit more to be able to create a list. That's why it's just basically better to have a list from the beginning. So let's uncomment this and let's just go from there. Okay, so there we go. Now it looks a lot nicer. All right, we don't have to add any styling or positioning or frames or anything. The list just does it for us straight out the box. Okay, so let's now just get rid of this default user and go from there. So we've got to have some way of populating this one list of users, and we've seen in the other video we've used task, and we've done all URL session from here, which is fine, but it's not really what we want to do. So let's just go back to the beginning now and make sure that we are implementing everything in its own way. So we've got users list view, we're happy with that. We come inside of here to the navigation link, and we know that we're going now to the actual detail. Let's put this one back just for the sake of having this one item, right? And let's come back to our users feature within inside of the stack, and here we can add the navigation destination for a user, right? And we can get rid of this, and here we can say user detail, and we've got then the user here, which is perfectly fine. And like I said, we could add this user to it, but we want the user detail to be able to load the data itself. We don't want to be passing it in because, well, we don't want to do it that way. All right, so now we have this. We should be able to just tap here, and we get user one there, perfectly fine. All right, and we can come in here, and also we can control the navigation title, and we can say user and user ID here as well. So when we run it again, we now get that, and we can also control the navigation display title just to be in line. We run it again, and we're getting this perfectly fine. Okay, so happy days. We now have the user detail itself, and we come back out to the content view, and we've now got the list here, and we can go straight into it as well. You could put a plus button up here on the users, but this app isn't about creating it, it's just about reading it from the JSON placeholder view. So how are we going to get the data right now? Well, we've got the features, and now we want to have a folder and say models, and this is where we're going to come back into the user list, and we're going to start extracting this to the model, to the models folder. And just say a model, and let's just extract this out to here, happy days, and then let's just call this then the index file, all right, where we can put any other relevant information in here. Okay, just in here, anything that we're going to add extra might be relative to models. All right, here. So now we have our model, and we can see that we're all building perfectly fine. And we come back to our content view, and we refresh this, and we're still working, all good. Right, so now we want to be able to come into our users list view, and we want to be able to load these users, all right? And we want to move this, because this is too much information. This state is perfect for our user list view as just a list view, but it's too much information we are giving to here, because we need to have like a task, and we need to load stuff, URL session. We just want to be able to populate this state from a function call and let that business logic sit somewhere else. And what we're going to have is another folder, and we're just going to call these view models, all right? And we're going to come here, we're going to say user view model here, and here we're now going to create a class, And this is going to be an observable object. Okay, you might be saying, well, wait a minute, we've got the likes of observable and so on, but I'm going to scroll this back to iOS 15. Okay, I'm going to come here, we're going to scroll back to iOS 15 because it's all well and good you saying I'm going to use the latest software all the time. Oh, sorry, we're going to need 16. Going to need 16 because we want the stack. Okay, yeah, we do want the stack. We want to use the best technology possible, but we want to use the best technology possible, but we want to support the most devices. And iOS 17 has all of the @observable property wrapper, but we can't use that in 16. So we want to support 16 as well. All right. So we're not forcing people to update their phones. We want to allow a few more people, and this allows a few more people to use your application. So now we've got the user model here. We can create a property wrapper in here instead. And this is going to be published. And this is then going to be items. And this is going to be user. And it's going to start off being empty. Right. Now, I want to have a function that we can call on load. All right. And that this function is going to be called asynchronously. So it means that the rest of our code is not it's not going to wait upon this. But when we're inside of let's get rid of the other tabs. All right, let's come back to our feature, and we're specifically now talking about this this user list view. We want to be able to load these users, and we want some way of being able to populate these users here. Right, well, we can now do, instead of this, we can now say a state object, and we're just going to say view model instead. And let's just say user view model. We can add that here instead now, and rather than using the items, we can use view model dot items here as well. So we can get rid of this state now because we're extracting this business logic from the view model itself. So let's come inside of here and let's add one of these items. Just add item 1 and come back to our content view, and you can see here now that it's still working because we've added this user state object directly inside this list view. But this list view now is instantiating this user view model, and that's not what we want. We don't want a view being in controlling of view models. We want it being using view models. So this is still too much information, right? And user view model. And now you can see that we have to add this view model here. Let's just say view model here, and we instantiate it here, and then we add it to the preview and return. And we're all happy, but now we're passing it as a initializer, right? Well, we don't want that, okay? We don't want that. We will literally want to be able to create the user list view without any argument. So state object is the wrong one that we want. We want to have environment object instead. And now you can see that it doesn't get added to the initializer. However, this is going to crash now because obviously it doesn't have this environment object, and it's saying it doesn't have there. So we have to add this this environment object to the environment before this view loads, and now it works perfectly fine. All right. So when we now come back to our content view, we're going to see a crash once again because obviously our application, specifically this preview, doesn't have our users view model. So let's just quickly add it on and then refresh it, and now we get it back again. So now let's come to our iPhone 15 app, and let's just let it load. And now we're going to get a crash once again because our main app doesn't have this either. So let's just let it crash first of all to show you the problem. And there we go. All right, Swift environment object here. No observable object of user view model found. A environment object for user model may be missing, but as an ancestor of this one view. That is a pretty good error message in all fairness. So let's come up here, and we're going to create a state object within inside of our app level, and we're just going to call this, let's call it users view model, because the likelihood is you'd create another one as well, and we can initialize it here. And this is at the highest level. Let's put an L there. This is now at the highest level. It doesn't get any higher. Well, you could put it up here, but that's not good practice. But now, with inside of the content view, we can add users. We can add users view model here, and when we run the application once again, you should see everything works, and it does. So this is now extracting this to a higher level. Now, do we need to put state object here? Yes, because we want SwiftUI to look for any changes with inside this one published. So when this one changes, that's why we need SwiftUI to say, okay, I will monitor any changes with inside of your user view model. All right, and that's why it's important here, and we're adding it to the content view. Let's just remove this from the content view and go to the environment object here and add it here, and let's compile it. It says this is only available of iOS 17, so this needs to be done at a view level. As of iOS 17, you can do it at a window level or a scene level as well. Okay, but for the time being, in an iOS app, you're going to have to put it in the environment object of the view itself. So with that said, we've now removed the responsibility of creating the user view model to the highest possible point here. All right, but now we want really to know that our user list view is the one responsible for loading this data here. Okay, and we can make it async. All right, and inside of here we're going to say URL session shared, and then data task for publisher with a URL. Let's just create the URL quickly, and using a string, and we've got that, and let's just do that. And now we have this. We're going to say map. All right, we want to map $0.data first of all, and then we want to decode, and we're going to decode it into an array of users, and for the time being we're just going to say JSON decoder. Now you could put this decoder at a higher level because you might have some other rulings that you want to do and so on. So but the next thing that we want to do really is to receive this on the main thread. Okay, but we're going to use the run loop, because this is not going to be downloading like 10,000 plus users. We're going to download maybe 50 or maybe 100 or maybe 20, and that is not enough data to really require dispatch queue. Sorry, the run loop is for that. It's for quick and easy tasks, and decoding 50 items is super quick, especially for the likes of the iPhones and so on that we have today. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we need to sync on this. All right, and we can just sync on the actual value itself here, and we can come to it and say self items equal value. All right, and now because we're not handling the error, we're going to have to sync. We're going to do completion here to handle the error, and then we're going to say whoops. We're going to handle the new value here, and then we can say self items is new value if we spell it correctly, and replace that there. Okay, so now we can come to switch completion and case finished. Then we do case finish and case failure, and then we've got the error there as well. And we're just going to print the error if we get an error, and we're going to then just break if we get finished. And now we need to create a cancelable up here to be able to save this. So we're just going to say private var and cancelable here, and this needs to be a set of any cancelable, and we're just going to initialize this here. And obviously it doesn't recognize it, so we're going to have to import combine as well. Okay, you could use async and await, but this is way better idea, okay, in all fairness. And from here we can say store in, and then cancelable here. There. Now we have these. All right. So now we have loaded our users from our user model, and if we run this once again with an empty set, and we come and look over here, content view, we run it again, and we'll get an empty screen. Happy days. All right. We've got an empty screen. We come to our users list, and this one doesn't have the environment object, so we're just going to add it here as well. And users view model, happy days. Let's run it there, see whether this is working. It obviously is working, but we don't have any data yet, so we have to come down to here, and we can say view model dot load. All right, and then that loads the data that we want. So let's come back out to our view, and we can see that we're working fine here. Right, so I said it, like I said in the previous video, in this video, let's come back to detail, is that we want to know that detail handles this information for itself. Okay, and so let's make a form, and we'll just say a section and then name here. Let's just do a text field and then whoops, and then name, and we're going to need a user model here as well. All right, so let's just get rid of that for the time being. And inside of here, we have the ID. So we want to have a state. Whoops. We want to have a state where we can access the actual user itself. I'm going to say here user. All right. And now in the beginning, this user is obviously going to be empty. All right. So we inside of the form, we're going to display the form. But what we're going to do is we're going to check if let user right here, if we actually have a user, then we're good, right? But we want the binding, so we're going to create a binding from this, and here we can say user here instead. Right now we know that we have, now that we know that we have a binding, we can come in here and we can say text field, and then name, and here we can say binding dot name, which we obviously have to add to the user itself, and we'll just say we need to make var because we're going to be changing the name, and let's just add username as well. The whole point of this is not to go through all of these things. So now we have name, and now we can come here and say username, and come here and say username, and there we go. All right, so we don't have a user right now. So next thing we want to be able to do is we want to actually load this one user. So once again, you can use the task, and we'll come back to our view model, and now we want to load a specific user. All right, so let's just call it function get user with ID, and it's an int, and in this sense we're going to have an any publisher, and we're going to have a user here, and we're going to have a never as well. So we could first of all check that we've got the users within inside of here, which is all right, but we want to be able to reduce this down, because this code here is a little bit, we don't really want to duplicate it, but for the sake of getting everything working, first of all, we're going to remove this like this here, because we're going to be handling this on the view level. All right, and now here we have to say erase publisher, and if I remember rightly what it is again, we are going to assert no failure. All right, and we just need one user instead, and we're going to say users, and here we're going to say with ID. Oh yeah, sorry, we are going to say, so at the moment we are saying, okay, fine, it's going to be definitely there. All right, we're not handling the worst case situation. That's why we're doing this assert no failure. Please don't do this. All right, but we need to handle this properly. But for the sake of simplicity, we're going to skip over that for future videos. Okay, so we've now got a URL that we could shift out elsewhere, but let's come back to our detail view here, and we can now say view model. We need the view model, sorry, in here as well. So we can have now environment object, because we know the view model is there, and we can say view model is then user view model. Let's just come back to list and let's copy this and detail. Let's copy that and do that there. Happy days. Okay, so now we have the view model. All right. So we now need to say view model, and we want to say get user. We have the ID here. We are going to say receive value here and say user. All right, and then we can say self user is equal to user. And when we go into here, you can see already we put it on the main thread already. Okay, this one here, put it onto the main thread already. And we don't want the cancellables. Let's just say cancellables here to say there instead. Okay, so come back to the detail and we can say store in view model cancellables here. And now you can see, boom, we get the user nice and easy. So let's come back to our content view. We get user 1. So now rather than having just the information here, sorry, now rather than in the list view, we can turn around and say username, and we can possibly make a VStack, and we'll just say alignment, and then leading, and then do this with their name, which we don't need that there. We'll just say user item name, and then we'll just say item username, and we'll make this text just that little bit smaller. Happy days. All right, that's nice. All right, maybe we can add the email there just to be a bit more fun as well. And come here, let's add the email to this, email, and then email. Happy days. And we'll come back to the list view, user features, list view, and we have this, and then we can say, I don't know, we could put this in a H stack maybe, and then let's just copy this, shall we? And we'll say email as well, and then we'll just put a text in the middle of pipe and do that. Happy days. Maybe we don't even need that pipe. Maybe that's just enough. So now we've got this information and we can't navigate over to it, but we come out to the other view, and now we can get the information that we want. All right, happy days. So this is showing you now how we can create these views, and when we come over to photos, we just can follow exactly the same ruling once again. All right, but the question is, we saw in the other video how we can extract this to generic functions and so on. So it's not super difficult. All right. But the question that you might be asking is, well, when we have the photos, how do we load the photos? You know, do we need to create an additional view model for this? Well, yes, you can, but what you can do is you can just extract this. Let's extract this, and we'll just call it JSON placeholder API instead. All right, and let's just remove, copy all this, and say get items. All right, and this needs to be a function, get items, and the generic type parameter here can be that it's a model, and there we are going to in this sense we're going to return it as a sync, and here we are then going no, we don't want that. We just want we'll just return it as an any publisher, and then in here we can say T, and we're going to say never as well, and from here we can just copy most of this and just come down here, and then we'll just say endpoints, and this is where you would put this in an enum once again. All right, so we'll just say endpoint here, and you can come here and place the endpoint text there, and now we just need to return this as well, and say erase that here, and we're going to assert no failure as well. And here we just come T in here. All right, so now we've created this JSON placeholder API thing here, so we can pretty much remove all of this now. Okay, now all we have to do is add this JSON placeholder API here. So let's just do API and JSON placeholder API here, and we can create initializer now, and just do JSON placeholder API, and self.api is equal to API, and let's just nudge this down a little bit to here. And now inside of this we can say API get items, and we know that it's going to be users, where we can get rid of this and do it from there. Go down like that, and now we have to come back up here instead, and we can come here, and we're just going to initiate it like this in the beginning. Okay, and within inside of our view now, we now just need to have an API. Let's come here as well, and we just instantiate it like that. And once this is loaded, where's the errors? Okay, we need to get rid of the errors. Okay, and let's do this once again and do that. Let's copy and paste this like that there, and that there. Yes, it looks like it's all working. Come to content view, we are working now still. So when we come to our user features, our user list, we can come to our user model. We can now see here, and if we come in a new folder, and we'll just say resources, and we create a new file here now, we can turn around and say this is the JSON placeholder here, and we can extract this to this one file, and we are going to need to combine in here as well. Okay, so now we've done a little bit more work to be able to extract it. All right, so we can use it everywhere else. Now we can extract this here to our API as well, and we're just going to say get item with ID, and once again we're going to say model, and this is then going to say model, and for endpoints as well, like this, and we can come in here and say endpoint as well. We need to get rid of this here as well, so T cannot do this, return. Where's model? Model is there. Generic T, get item. Oh, there we go. That's better. Yeah. So that was what was wrong. So now we have our URL. It's collecting all the data. Obviously, this assert no failure is something you shouldn't be doing, right? And we can now put our JSON decoder up the top here, and just instantiate that. And now we could configure our JSON decoder to how we want it. All right. So let's come back over to our view model here, and now we can say API get item, and we can say users, and with ID. What do we have here? Get item, sorry, and then say ID here. What did I do it with? Oh, it's with ID. Yes, of course. And now everything should work exactly the same still. When we rerun it, it should work the same. Yes, it does. We're all working the same. So you can see now that we are inside of our view. We've just got the view down to using our view model. Our view model knows next to no data whatsoever. However, we are still doing a little bit of loading data here, which in my opinion right now this is okay, and we've got the get user for the user, to get the actual user for in the view model. Now we could make this even more generic, because right now we only care about really the user and so on. So we could then here say entity view model, right? And we could say that T is got to be equal to model here, and this is going to be an observable object when we do that properly here. And let's just copy and paste all of this just to show you how this works. And we can come here in the items, sorry, observable object, that's better. And then we inside of here we just need to fix this now, and we can say then the endpoints here instead, and we can add that there like that. So that fixes this bit. And get user, so get let's say get entity with ID, and we can say here endpoints as well, no problem, and we can add that to there. And this is then T once again. Happy days. So now we have created our entity view model instead. So rather than having this here, we don't essentially need this user view model anymore, right? We could just as easily create a user entity view model here, right? And this then could this then naturally could also be an observable object as well, right? And you can come here and we can say get user and load here too, right? And you now, rather than calling your API, you could just call your entity view model here instead, an entity view model here instead, and that's entity view model. And in this sense, we're using entity view model, and there we need the API here, right? And we've got the load already, so we essentially can say entity view model load, and here we say the endpoints, right? And we have to say await here instead, and now we have the load. And now we can turn around and say get user and entity view model get entity with users on the user's endpoint with the ID. And now rather than using the user view model, we could use this user entity instead. So let's come to our features and just use the detail instead. And let's use the entity view model instead. And we need then store the cancellables as well, right? So let's just create a cancellables here and create a set of any cancellables, and then just send back our entity view model cancellables instead. So we now know that when we come to our detail view, we still have these here. Oh, it's a get only property. Okay, we can't do that. So let's just do get, and we'll say entity view model cancellables and set, and we can say entity cancellables equals new value as well. And come to the detail. Is this working still? That's working now. All right, so we know that we are setting it on there, right? So now we just need to come to this and say entity user entity view model instead. And when we run this, I'm hoping it's still working, and it is, right? We come to the content view and we're still working. Okay, that's not working, but that's because we now need an entity user entity view model instead. Let's rerun it. And what are we now missing? We are now missing user feature. User list is still using the view model itself. Okay, so let's come back to here and let's add environment object and users view model with the API as well, and run this once again, and there we go, boom. So now you can see that our users list view is using our view model, right? And our user detail view is using our entity view model. Now, which one looks better? This entity view model is pretty slim, right? We could pass this entity view model in the constructor, right? But it's pretty lightweight here, okay? And we could possibly extract this data out even further. So let's just put it inside of here. Let's put it inside of in the view models here, and go from there and take this out, put it into there. There we go, and let's clean that up, and now we can take this out as well and put that into there. And import combine. Happy days. So now we've got our API in here. The cancellables is just part of foundation and combine, no problem. The published at is part of the Swift and also combine. So we're fulfilling all of this, and we could add a protocol on here as well. This load is doing nothing but what combine is doing. We don't really know any information because the generic type parameter is where all the information is coming from. API get item, even the endpoint we don't really care about, but it's this JSON placeholder. This is what really knows about the information up here. Other than that, our placeholder API is pretty dumb, and you could use it for as much as you want. And if you wanted to pass the decoder in as a parameter, you could do that too, right? And then just say self.json is then a decoder, and we go from there. So you could pass this information in even further, right? And we can then do the endpoint URL as well. Could come in even further, and this then could be this here. All right, let's just take that out and put that there, and then we can come and place this there too, and we say self.endpoint URL is self.endpoint URL, and come here and endpoint URL there as well. And now we can copy and paste that down here as well. Come back to our content view, refresh the view, and everything is still working. So bit by bit, we are making these things more and more generic to be used everywhere and anywhere. All right, and you could go even further from this and use this on the other views. So let's come down to our photos views now, right? And we can, just for the sake of now using this entity view model, right? Because with inside of here, we could just say here that we're going to use the default API here, even if we don't want to. If we don't want to create it, right, we can get rid of this now. Oh, sorry, which one we were on? We were on the entity view model here, right? So let's come back to our user list, and let's say entity view model here instead, and let's just say user on there. They're all happy now, and let's just add this in here. Endpoint string is users. Make sure we're still working perfectly fine. And what are we? Okay, we need entity view model API. That's fine, and we need to do this here. That's good. So when we refresh this, it should be working once again. Happy days. Let's come back to our content view here, and we obviously now need fatal error in that. We just now need our entity view model here as well, and let's rebuild this and have another look, and we're working again, right? Whoops, user entity view model. Let's have a look who's using that now, user entity view model, detail view, user entity view model. This now needs to use the entity view model here instead, and this then gets entity and users, happy days, and this is then entity view model, and you come here and refresh that once again. Whoops. And we should be working now. No, okay, user detail view. Let's give it a rebuild. Happy days. So we're all working. Let's come back on the outside and we go in. Let's install this to the iOS, the simulator, see whether we're all working there. Okay, we need to come back out to the actual application level, and inside of here we need to say entity view model, and here, and then we can just init here as well, and we should now be working. Happy days. All right, so now you can pretty much come to this user's view model, and we know this user's view model is now not working, so let's just comment it out and run it again just to make sure that is actually true. Okay, it's not using it here, but we don't need it anymore. Where else? Users feature, we can say entity view model here, whoops, and run it again and build it again, and now we're all working. So now we know that we've removed this, and now we can remove this as well. So we know that we don't need these two files anymore because we're just using this entity view model as well. All right, and if we wanted to come to, let's just make sure this is working too. Yes, we are. So now when we come to our users list view, what's stopping us from copying this, right, and going to now the posts view? What did I just copy again? Basically everything. Now going to the post view and putting it in there, all right, and now we just need the post here instead. Obviously, when we come to this user list view, we need to change this down here for the posts as well, and we copy and paste that once again with posts, and we change this to post, and we don't have a post, so we need to come to our models, and let's just put the post inside of here so we don't have to create another file. And let's come to the posts and see that we need a title and body. All right, so title and body, and we can have user ID and put that as to an integer as well. Come back to posts feature, and let's rebuild this, see what we're missing right now. Cannot convert this to the data. Okay, let's close the other tabs. Let's have another look at view model. Whoops. Items is post. Okay, it's because title, whoops, title, and let's just do text item and body. That should work, and we need posts here instead. Let's run this and see what actually happens here now, and we get posts root view, which is fine. Let's come back to our content view, posts feature, and we need posts feature here. Let's run this again, see what we get. And when we do this, we see that we don't have the entity view model for posts. So it's no problem. We just need to add it. All right. Come back here and posts view model. And do this once again. And come here, entity environment, posts view model. And let's run it again, see what happens. There we go, see? And we've got basically one view model that worked perfectly fine for it. And by definition, you know that if that one worked, this one is going to work as well. All right. So do we really need to have the T up here? Are we, apart from storing it here, we could just give the get entities as a function here instead, rather than placing them the published up here. This is also possible. So with that said, should now make you understand how just little Swift code or SwiftUI code we need to write when we use generics, combine, SwiftUI, all encompassed together to basically keep code as simple as possible. And we could have this JSON placeholder implement a protocol as well with associated types. We could go even further with this to basically abstract this text out to somewhere else as well. So with that said, I hope that you've learned something from this one video. I hope you've got something out of it. It should be really teaching you now is how to write good code where we utilize generics in its fullest. You don't have to use protocols with generics, but just here using structs and some classes, we can really get generics, as good as possible. And obviously, with the likes of codable, hashable, and identifiable, they're key things that you should learn in the future. Now, granted, one thing that I want you to take away from this is, let's just have a look here. One thing I want you to take away from this is this assert no value, this never here. At one point, there's going to be a network error. So you're going to have to be able to handle that network error. But I just didn't want to add that complexity level to it. I just wanted to keep this focus on downloading the data and displaying this data. That was it. So I apologize for using this assert no value, and I apologize for using this exclamation mark as well. But it's just for demonstration purposes. I wouldn't do this in a actual application. With that said, I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and do any other social media thing that is out there to be done. And if you've got any questions, feedback, or concerns, let's start, as always, a conversation in the comment section down below. I will answer every single message, and if I can't answer it with text, I'll answer it with a video. With that said, my name's David Thorne. I'm doing this just for you. I appreciate all your support. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao, and goodbye.